Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I am Adam Lundy, and I am joined as always by my co-hosts Chris Haskell and Zach Bryant. Hello,
Hey
gentlemen.
there.
Hello,
How are we?
hello. I'm good. I'm just realizing we're old because we spent 10 minutes talking about the weather before we started recording. So I think that's the moment you realize it.
Yeah, I'm at the moment. I'm ordering my headstone right now. I'm gonna need that soon, I think.
Well, with these supply chain issues, you might need to do it sooner than later just to get it in time.
Better to have it and not need it, and need it and not have it. So
Oh
get that out of
boy.
the way.
You know that whole phenomenon about once you learn about something, it shows up everywhere.
yeah. I
Um,
forget what the name of it is, but yeah, I've heard of that.
so there's a random one now. Have y'all ever heard of the plant called verbena?
No.
No.
Neither had I. Thank you. So there's a bar that opened up in Austin called Verbena, and I was trying to figure out like what this was, and I guess it's some kind of a nice smelling plant. Now all of a sudden I'm seeing it in soaps and I'm seeing it everywhere. And now it's like this. It's I think this episode is brought to you by Verbena today, because it's in it's in my life now in a big way, and I
I'm
would have
like
not been able
ransacking my bathroom now to see if I can find it.
to. You record this in your bathroom? That
I am
raises
right
other
now.
questions.
It might sound a little different because now I'm looking.
If there's an echo, everyone's Zach's talking. You know what he's doing behind.
Hopefully, there's no plopping sounds shortly.
That's why he goes on mute. Anyways, how have y'all been? You watch anything?
I
Well,
have a couple of things I'll just sort of breeze through just because I haven't been watching a whole ton because the last week I've been reading the book for Killers of the Flower Moon. I haven't seen the film yet, so no spoilers. I'm waiting for it to go onto Apple TV Plus because I don't have the bladder control to sit in a theater for 3.5 hours anymore. So there's no way I can go see Killers of the Flower Moon in a theater. So, but I really wanted to sort of experience it, I guess. So I'm reading the book, and the book is incredible. Um, I bought it like a week ago, and I'm nearly at the end, like two-thirds of the way through.
Wow.
Um, so it's really, really good. So I've ordered a couple of more books by that author, because I really like his writing style. But I did watch a couple of things in the last couple of weeks since we talked. I watched After Hours, the Martin Scorsese film. Um, it was a good film, but like this is like when we had our Big Lebowski discussion last week. Like I feel like it's overrated or something because everyone was like, going crazy when the Criterion finally got announced. People were asking for it for years and years and years, and I was expecting it to be like this like masterpiece or whatever. But like, it's a good film and everything. And I've no problems with it, but maybe a bit overrated, or people just kind of overhyped it because they were waiting for the Criterion to drop. But maybe I'm the bad guy in that one. Um, I watched The Killer, the new David Fincher film. It dropped on Netflix last week or so. I watched that. I thought it was pretty good, not like top tier Fincher or anything, but I enjoyed it. It's a fine way to spend, an hour and 45 minutes or whatever it was. I thought it was pretty good.
it's a
Um,
very stripped down Fincher. It's kind of how
yeah,
I see it. Yeah,
very, very
it's very
basics.
pure almost.
Yeah, it's very, very basic film, which is fine. I had no problems with that at all. So I enjoyed it. I went to the theater and saw The Marvels. I don't know why it's getting so much hate. It's like it's not a good movie or anything, but it's definitely not the worst Marvel movie. Even not even like the worst Marvel movie I've seen recently. Thor 4 was way worse than this and hasn't been getting half the hate. So the Marvels was fine. Again, it's like I think we talked about this last time. It's shorter than a lot of the Marvel stuff has been recently. It's like an hour 40 minutes or something like that. And it definitely feels that way. Like the first half is an absolute mess. You can tell they cut out a bunch of stuff to kind of speed up the pace or whatever. But like it feels like the first act is really jarring because of that. They just kind of dunk you in the middle of action. But like I don't think it's as bad as the reviews are saying. It's definitely not like a great film or anything, but it's I don't know why it's getting trashed so much when Thor 4 didn't get anywhere near this amount of trashing.
I think
Uh
it feels like to me like it's just it's scapegoated. Like there's a lot
yeah,
of frustration, and they're just saying, you know what, the Marvels is the problem, even though it's like, no, these are all problems that have been going on for a while now.
Yeah, and I feel like it's easy for the nerds of the world to try and pick on the movie that has the three female leads.
Yeah.
Um, the last thing then, last night I watched Mothra versus Godzilla for the film club, and I still don't really know even what to think about that movie. Jesus, what a weird concoction of stuff. I was 15 minutes in, and those little fairies showed up, and I'm like, what in the hell am I even? What drugs have I been slipped? Yeah, I don't even know how to even talk about that movie. When Godzilla shows up, I'm happy because I love Godzilla. The scream is just Godzilla's scream, just gives me hype. I love Godzilla, but geez Louise, uh, my main problem with all the monster movies, and I mean that from the old Godzilla movies to the new ones in the MonsterVerse, there's too many humans in my monster movies. Get rid of all the humans and let us have the monsters, and then the movies are all great. So that's my.
See, I think that's why the new King of the Monsters is my favorite. Like, it has way too much human stuff, but it's almost like the director just didn't care about it. He's like, it's here, but the monster stuff's just way cooler.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Mothra vs. Godzilla felt as well. There's like a lot of weird like bureaucratic stuff and like espionage and trying to get behind, all this kind of nonsense happening, and none of it makes sense, and that's okay because Godzilla's gonna stomp on some buildings and shit. So that's all we're here. That's all we're really here for is that part.
Yeah, that series goes. I remember when I went through the whole Showa era set from Criterion. Maybe it was last year or 2 years ago. I don't know. But I remember just being surprised at how like campy and kind of insane some of these movies are. That's not what I pictured.
Especially when you
Um,
compare it to the first Godzilla, because that film was like so serious and it's really
yeah,
great.
yeah,
That's like a great film and it's really serious. And then everything after that is just leans into the ridiculousness aspect of it.
yeah. Like the one Hedora, I think it is, where they're fighting like some anthropomorph. What is the word? Anthrop
Anthropomorphic?
Anthro- Anthropomorphic,
anthropomorphic
something like that. Yeah,
human waste. They like somehow make pollution into a monster.
how subtle of them.
Yeah.
I think the Godzilla movies have always been known for their subtlety.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Anyways,
That's how Orlovsky learned his subtlety.
oh man, it's funny. What about you, Zach? Did you watch Mothra? That was your pick.
I am watching it this weekend as soon as I get back from work. So yes, I will be joining it. But then I was going to watch it the other day, and then Adam was like, "I'm 15 minutes in. I have no idea what's going on." I'm like, "I'm not in the mood for that right now."
That was last night. Yeah, I literally watched it last night.
Yeah, I was. It was one of
Straight
the. I
after.
was like,
Sorry.
"No, you're good." I was just like, "No, I'm not going to put up with it. I will watch it in a day or two,
It's
and then do
funny
my write up."
because I watched it straight after I finished Nope. So I watched Nope, Neve went to bed, and it was still early. And I'm like, screw it, I'll watch another movie. I'll watch this Mothra versus Godzilla movie for the film club. So, like, what a jarring combo to go from Nope to Mothra versus Godzilla.
Somehow
What do
they
you
could
mean?
be
They're
in this.
both creature features.
Yeah, yeah. Look, the theme was there. Like, I'll be real. The theme was there, but very different types of movies.
But no, actually, ever since we watched The Man Who Wasn't There for last recording, I've actually been re-going through all my Coen brothers, a lot of the rewatches, a lot of stuff I've missed. And I'm down to just needing to watch the last two, and I haven't done it yet, which is just Intolerable Cruelty and Lady Killers, and then I'll be done. But they're not free anywhere. Like, so I'm like, I really got to pay like $5 to watch these movies each. That sounds not fun. So I haven't done. I put that off for now, and I'm gonna need to go finish it. But yeah, I got those two left.
You're saying there's no streaming? Like most of the Coen Brothers movies are not streaming?
Most of them are, just not those two. And I owned
Oh,
a lot of them, so I was good on a lot of them. But I think the only one I've had to rent is Barton Fink. I think that was the only one I've had to do.
okay.
And the rest of them I've either owned or they've been on streaming.
Gotcha.
And then even Hudsucker Proxy was on Tubi.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so I mean, even that one was available. But no, beyond that, I've been going through that. I've actually watched Friedkin's last movie that he directed, the Kane Mutiny Court Martial. Super good movie. I watched it. I watched it the night before, and then I showed my girlfriend it last night. I, it's one of it's it's got William Friedkin directed. He passed away right before the movie came out, and Lance Reddick, I think it's his final film, unless he's got like one or two more things coming out. So it's almost jarring to see that type of movie like with a year both of them have passed away. Um, but it's so minimalist in what it does. Like it's a lot like 12 Angry Men, which I know Friedkin had remade at some point, but I had not seen that one. But it's so like the camera's very still, but it's subtle in what it's doing. The acting from like Kiefer Sutherland's great. Just a really, and it's got like a nice gut punch at the end of like what you kind of think's going on, and then it kind of like it's not necessarily a twist. It just kind of like recontextualizes everything going on, and it's really good. So I highly recommend people watch that one, even though it's like a TV movie basically. It's really well written and really good. And then the only other thing I'll bring up is right before we started recording, I watched Good Burger 2. Not as good as the first
Yeah.
one.
They
Oh,
made
really?
two of those? What the...
It just came out on Paramount,
Oh, right. Okay. It's wild.
and they're going to make a Good Burger 3, I guess.
Is Kel back?
Yeah, they a lot of people came back.
Oh, wow. As I know, obviously
It's,
Keenan's been doing Saturday Night Live pretty much since the first Good Burger came out, but Kel kind of like disappeared, so that's good.
I was looking at his movies, like his filmography, and it's just so sporadic. Like, I mean, it wasn't like you go like 10 movies back and you're looking at like 2009.
Wow.
So, I mean, he's not a guy who's ever had a ton of work, but yeah, it's a nostalgia thing. So if you like the first Good Burger, watch it. It's fine. It should have taken the plot for the book that came out in like the 90s, where they did a sequel where Kel obsessively tries to give like 18 cents back to a customer and ends up in a kidnapping plot in Paris. That should have been what Good Burger 2 was, but
Wait.
I digress.
Can I just rewind? There's a Good Burger book?
Yeah, it was a sequel book that came out in like the late 90s.
What?
No, this is Zach pitching. This is Zach pitching the book that he wrote.
This is insane. How does that even translate into book form, like in a cohesive way?
Scholastic, man, they'll make anything for the book fair.
Jesus.
I don't even know if
His
you
was
guys have that in Ireland now, but that's like a huge
We
thing here.
do.
We have like
We have book
the
fairs.
Scholastic book. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
when was that on Nickelodeon? Was it in the 90s or was that early 2000s?
That'd been late 90s, like
Yeah, that's right.
97. Yeah, I was like 3 when that movie. I had that movie on VHS, like when I was like very small.
But wasn't it a TV show first, or was the
It
TV
was
show
It was
Keenan?
a sketch on all that, wasn't it?
all that. Yeah, it's in all that
Yeah.
sketch.
Oh, okay.
And then there was the Keenan and Kel show, which was probably one of my favorite things. It was definitely the best live action thing Nickelodeon did, in my opinion, was the
Yeah.
Keenan and Kel show.
But
Drake and Josh exists.
That is good, but I think that was.
Good.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't.
No. I was in my head that was Good Burger. Sorry, I was just confused. But it was the Keenan and Kel show is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Drake and Josh is up there. But unlike Drake and Josh, there can be reunions, and that's something you can't get from Drake and Josh anymore.
That's true. Yeah, Drake's a scumbag. Oh well.
Chris, you finish up because
yeah, I'll sit here and talk about Nickelodeon all day if we don't. So please move on.
It's funny. Yeah, I have a little bit of exposure to Nickelodeon through my younger brother. He was born in '89, so that was kind of right in
peak
his
Nickelodeon era. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. So I have to talk about, other than the stuff that we watched, we're gonna talk about today. I feel like if I could focus just on one thing, it's this Peter Sulkin set that came out. I was going through, I mean, it came out from both Radiance and also Vinegar Syndrome.
Did you get yours yet? The Radiance one?
No.
Oh, I was thinking, geez, I haven't gotten mine yet. How did you get yours?
No, it should be shipping in. Well, it was supposed to be a November release, right?
Yeah, it's just slow to ship out, I think.
Yeah.
So it releases, quote unquote releases, and then they start shipping it like after the release date. They're not like Eureka are really good for making sure you have it. Like if you pre-order something, Eureka will make sure you have that at the very latest on release day, but usually a few days or a week before.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about ordering from places like Diabolic or Orbit. You know, they always ship a little bit before, but no, I'm going through the Vinegar Syndrome set. the archive set. And yo, these movies are fantastic. Like so good. I, I'm surprised more people aren't talking about them. I only assume it means that more people aren't watching them. Because Gollum could be a Terry Gilliam movie, hands down. It's just weird, but in like really fun, interesting ways. And it retells. Do y'all know the story of Gollum? It's like an old Jewish.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the big statue that you put a piece of paper into its mouth and it'll do tasks. The Simpsons did it, so pretty
There
sure
you
the
Yeah.
go.
Simpsons did it
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah. And it's a creature made from clay,
Yeah.
typically clay. But yeah, you got it. So that retelling is just really weird and done kind of in a um almost like a British TV kind of format, but like a very, esoteric one. And then War of the Worlds is just phenomenal. Like could be a John Carpenter movie, maybe some kind of combination of Carpenter and Gilliam, maybe. But it is so good, so interesting the way it's made. Just about kind of in a weird way prophetic for the way that people consume news now. It's very, very critical of the way people consume a 24-hour news cycle and don't question what they hear. Um, but it's so anyways, it's awesome. And I haven't seen the other two yet, but I'm gonna try to watch those soon because I'm hooked now. I like Sulkin.
So, Adam, since you brought up the Gollum from The Simpsons, I had to give like this quick story of when I was in Prague. We did like a night tour, and they started like doing, the story of the Gollum and stuff. And the tour person asked, like, "Does anyone know the story of the Gollum?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And I'm like the only me and my friend are the only Americans there, and I explain it, and she's like, "Oh wow, I just thought that was kind of like a local thing. So where did you learn it from?" And I was like, "The Simpsons." I was like,
Uh,
"That works."
I'm sure they are
That's
very
awesome.
impressed.
But
Brilliant.
yeah, but that's pretty much it. I mean, it's been a light week. Work is continuing to be rough on me, but I was able to get those in, and I'm excited for. Did y'all see the Untold Story 2 is coming to Vinegar Syndrome Archive as part of the Black Friday thing?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh,
It's the Cat 3 thing. I've never
yeah,
seen the first
Oh,
one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. They're not necessarily related. The Untold Story 2 just goes off in a crazy direction. But anyways, yeah, it should be a really fun line. A really fun one when it comes out. I think people are gonna be buzzing about it when they see it.
So how much was the has the sale part happened? I didn't do much on Vinegar Syndrome this time. Has like the yearly amount came out yet of how much it's going to be a member?
Oh, they changed the way they do that. So they have a week in January now where they do that. So
That's right. I forgot about that.
Uh, 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 uh. So Black Friday for them was about their 10 disc set, right? The first time they've done more than a 3 disc set. Um, which is a bunch called they're calling it Lost Picture Show, just a bunch of curios that they have personal attachment to. The 80s movie Daryl came out, which I don't know if y'all ever saw that. It's a really fun one. They
Mm-mm.
did the first 3 Prophecy movies. And then a big one that the big secret reveal for them was Existenz, the Cronenberg one.
And then I haven't looked online. I haven't went on the Facebook group because I don't get on Facebook much, but I'm sure there's plenty of complaints about them getting existence because that is just not Vinegar Syndrome. It's the same thing when they got TCM2.
Yeah, yeah, they're going kind of like I don't know if upmarket is the right word, but they're going into bigger movies, right? They also did the Black Room, which I think people are gonna have a lot of fun with when they see it. But yeah,
I think I did all mine on Severin. I did everything on Severin this year, which is kind of normal. I tend to do more of a Severin's Black Friday than I do Vinegar Syndromes.
Very cool. Right, well, suppose we'll jump in. We have 3 movies to talk about today. As listeners who stayed to the end last time out will know. Zach, with these being your picks, do you want to introduce them or how do you want to do this?
Sure, I can introduce them. Do we want to just introduce all 3 or just go for the first one?
We'll just go one by one as we usually do.
All right. Well, first we're going to start with a little movie early in this director's career you might have heard of, Steven Spielberg. We're going to talk about Jaws. And this is probably going to be a pretty basic one. I assume all of us had seen this before my pick. I hope this isn't anyone's first time. But if in
No,
case
I've
it
seen it for
is,
sure.
but in case it is, I didn't have the letterbox thing up, but basically, shark is found in small beach community, kills bunch of people. People go out and try to kill it. So that I think that covers the plot pretty well, right?
That will do fine.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with Chris, because I'm sure this is going to be one of the higher ones on the They Shoot Picture list that we do. So where is it located?
So, we followed two lists, right? One of them is They Shoot Zombies, although we follow that more loosely. But it's 9 on They Shoot Zombies.
Yeah, I expect that.
Understandable.
So it's an interest that horror list is interesting though. Do y'all know the top 10? Have we ever said that real quick?
I'm trying to
I
think. I'm
wouldn't know
sure
it off the top of my head.
The Exorcist will be number one.
Yeah.
Halloween will be in the top 5.
Yeah.
The Thing will be up there in the top 5, I'm sure.
Top 10 anyways, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard when you're on the spot trying to think. Texas
The
Chainsaw
Shining.
Massacre.
Yep. Shining is there, yep.
Rosemary's
yeah.
Baby, maybe.
Wow, I can't believe you picked that one. That's one that I would not have said top 10. I mean, just in terms of, name brand. But
Critically
yeah,
acclaimed. That's the thing. It's not. Yeah, critics love it.
Mhm.
Is that
Alien,
10?
maybe.
Aliens there. Yeah, I think we got them. Y'all got them
Night
all
of
except for. Oh,
Night
you
of
were
the
just
Living
about to
Dead.
say it. Yeah, that's
Night of
it.
the Living
That's
Dead.
the top
Yeah,
10.
fair enough.
Well done. And then randomly Nosferatu from Murnau is number 11. But yeah, the horror list is interesting. So Jaws is number 9, and then They Shoot Pictures is still a top 100 movie. So They Shoot Pictures is 94.
Okay,
And
it's in the
Impressive.
top 100. I actually thought it would be higher, to be honest.
yeah,
Top 100 still impressive though.
Yeah.
yeah. Right below it is that movie from the 60s, La Jetée. That's
Oh yeah, the Chris Marker film, the one that
yeah,
inspired 12 Monkeys.
yeah,
Good film.
exactly. So it's yeah, and then The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is right above it. Um, but anyways, so yeah, this movie is critically acclaimed. Who knew? Um, it's so interesting watching did y'all, I know y'all have both seen it, but did y'all watch it again like for this?
Yeah,
I watched it in July, so I'd
July.
already reached it kind of recently. So
Okay.
I watched it
It's
again because I hadn't seen it in like a year or two, so I watched it again.
Oh, for me, it'd been like 15 or something. It'd been a
really,
minute. Yeah. I didn't, it's just crazy to see like how influential this movie was. Like, I'm assuming a lot of the tropes that come from horror movies came from this, in terms of like, even just like the guy, he was kind of eating like his breakfast or eating ice cream or something and just, sitting there talking about the shark when they're having that town meeting. That old kind of old man, I mean, he turns out
yeah,
not,
yeah.
but that old like wisdom coming in, or just like I don't know, the whole storyline, like of sort of ignoring the problem, trying to cover up the problem getting worse. Like there's just so many parts of this movie that are basically define horror for like or non-slasher horror anyways.
Yeah, like there's a reason why like any sort of big monster movie that came out after this is always marketed as Jaws in something or Jaws as something. So like even Alien was called Jaws in space, So
Wow.
there's a reason for that.
Which is funny because I would say Alien is a lot closer to a slasher film than it is a monster film. I mean, it blends both, but I would say it's closer to a traditional slasher film.
Maybe just marketing wise.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, Jaws at that point was like what, like 5 years old?
Yeah, I was just looking
Yeah,
that up. Yeah, 4 it
yeah,
looks like. Yeah.
yeah.
That's and it's like I would the like I was surprised though because I was expecting it to be cheesy because it was these tropes are so embedded and everything. But I think Spielberg pulls that balance off pretty well. Like it's over the top and all that stuff, but it's not. it doesn't come off as overly campy, I think. I think he's able to kind of balance the filmmaking side with just the fun storyline pretty well.
And I know we talked about a little bit of this when we talked about, I don't know how long ago this was. We were talking about The Godfather and how trashy the book is. This kind of follows that as well, where the original book is not good. It's not good at all. None of the characters are likable. And he kind of takes that and makes it something a way more special than it probably ever should have been, pulling from that novel.
Interesting. I mean, I guess they're all crusty in this, but they're certainly likable.
It's a very, and this was one of the reasons I chose all three we'll be talking about. Is one thing I love about monster movies, but specifically the three we'll talk about, is it's a very blue collar focused thing, and that's something I really like about monster films. Is just, these are regular people who don't really fully understand what they're doing, but they're taking their ingenuity and what they do know and trying to make it work. And I think that's it. I think Jaws does it well. I think the one we'll talk about next does it even better, but this one definitely, I think, started a lot of that.
That's a cool point. Also, holy box office. Have you all ever seen how much money this movie made?
It's considered the first blockbuster, right? Like, isn't that like what it's
the first summer blockbuster is what Jaws. Yeah, Jaws is considered to kick off the summer blockbuster craze even before Star Wars.
So anybody who doesn't like Marvel movies has Jaws to blame?
Basically, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
$475 million back in the 70s. Holy cow.
And then it was all, I couldn't imagine the budget's not high because the shark was, I mean, 9 million. So it's making, I mean, I don't even know the percentage of that. It's just hand over fist, I think, is the simplest way to put it.
Yeah, because they weren't spending 100 million on marketing back in the 70s, right? So it was probably 18 is technically break even plus whatever they spent on marketing. So I don't know, let's say they went crazy and spent 30 million on marketing. The rest of it's just cash.
And I mean, Spielberg, this is what, his second film after Duel, or am I a little off there? I feel like this is just right after. So you have a pretty young director making this. And then you have John. I mean, it was just, a lot of good pieces ended up there. You have John Williams. The poster itself, who knows? They probably didn't spend that much on that, but it's an iconic poster now. And I mean, it's been parodied to death. So, I mean, you have all that working for you. It's hard to even gauge, I guess, without them saying how much the marketing is, because a lot of it worked in their favor.
Yeah, just kind of got the buzz cut on, right? And that soundtrack, like how many times has that soundtrack been parodied and everything? But that instantly became like a pop culture thing around the world, right? Anybody knows that now.
Yeah, there was this is a small tangent, but I think it's great. And it does talk about it, how iconic it is. I listened to the Insider podcast for Better Call Saul, the Breaking Bad spinoff. And the thing they talked about in that is it was in the script that they were going to have a couple seconds of the Jaws theme playing at one time. And they said it's one of the few times Sony had sent the script back saying, you can't put that in here. It's $50,000 for those two notes. And so they had to cut the whole thing out.
Wow. Well, should we play it just so people know how baller we are?
No.
Adam's like, we didn't get this far in the podcast to have it shut down by John Williams.
Exactly.
I would like to receive that note, though. Maybe we could start a friendship.
Ask him to come on and explain himself.
He's not doing anything. But yeah, no, I mean, it sounds silly to talk about how iconic Jaws is, like, I mean, obviously. But sometimes these older movies I struggle with, not older, sometimes these movies that have built such a reputation I struggle with, because I'm just like, well, I don't know if it quite lives up to the reputation. But yeah, I mean, Jaws is just fun, right? Like, I think it's one of those movies that, like, they just kind of get the balance right. And so it's so easy to watch and so fun. And they balance the scares well. So yeah, I don't know. What a fun movie. Reputation earned, I think.
And that's always going to be the tough thing. I almost didn't choose this, and I actually almost went with Tremors and Note, but like where you were talking about, so much came from Jaws. It's like I kind of feel like we have to, but at the same time, it's almost like, what do you say? What is there left to say about Jaws at this point? It's a lot of fun.
Jaws is good.
Yeah, I mean it's
I've seen Jaws so many times. So this is like I've seen this film a bunch of times. One of my earlier film um memories was my grandfather rent. I was staying with my grandparents, and my grandfather rented the movie from the video store because he was like, "Have you seen Jaws, Adam?" And I was 9. It's like, "No, no, Granddad, I have not seen Jaws." It's like, right, well, we're gonna watch Jaws, and it scared the crap out of me. Because obviously I'm 9 years old. But I've seen it a bunch of times since. But this is the first time I like was watching it, and it's obviously a good film, but this was the first time I'd really sat down and really noticed how technically brilliant it is, like from a filmmaking standpoint. The editing and everything like that is just it's so good. The whole build up to the scene where the kid gets eaten on the raft, that whole
Oh
build
yeah.
up where Brody's on the beach with his family and you can tell how tense he is. And he does that really cool cut that you see sometimes in movies, but it's done really well here, where someone like walks in front of the frame and suddenly it's like zoomed in on the next shot. You know, that kind of a cut.
Hmm.
I don't know what the technical name for it is, but you see it a lot sometimes, but it's done really well here. And the way that I need to say Scorsese, the way that Spielberg
Hmm.
directs that scene and the whole movie really, it's just a masterclass in technical filmmaking for somebody who is still pretty new at making films at this point. It's really just top notch. Um, Obviously the shark still looks great today, even considering this was back in the 70s, and the for all accounts the shark itself was a piece of shit and it was terrible to deal with, and they had so many problems dealing with this antrum, whatever the word is, the mechanical shark anyway. They had so many problems with it. But it still looks great, looks really, really good, still scary. Um, and yeah, like the only thing I could really, and again, maybe criticize is the wrong word. It's maybe a little bit over long. It's maybe a little bit longer than it needs to be. Like it takes a while for them to get onto the boat. And then when they're on the boat, they don't actually do a whole lot for a while. Maybe
They
it's my
get
only.
drunk as shit. That's like half of
Yeah, and
it.
that's a cool scene, but like there's a lot even building up to that part, like where they're just kind of teasing with the shark, I guess. But yeah, I really don't have a bad word to say about Jaws. I think this was the first time I'd really noticed how technically brilliant it is. Like it's always been a good film, just purely from an entertainment standpoint, but I really took notice of the technical aspect of it this time around. It's a really, really brilliant film. It's a real masterclass in editing and building tension and everything like that. And you know, the whole idea of not showing the shark for so long, just kind of hinting at it and showing the fin and showing it from the shark's point of view and stuff was really brilliant. And kind of it's weird when you sort of look at the background of the film and how it was made and stuff like that. They really did that purely because the shark didn't look all that good and it was a pain in the ass to film with because it was just like this big mechanical thing. But what a happy accident. It ended up being like the best creative decision the film could have made by not showing the
Yeah,
shark for so long.
right.
And
Do you,
I think one element that I think always impressed me with Jaws, because really there's obviously the solution they need to kill the shark and get rid of it because of what's happened. But I think you're talking about like the zoom ins and the things like that on the land, like where it's almost like a shark is almost there, like how a shark would hunt, where it just keeps getting closer and closer and that tension is building. I think what it does really well is it never makes the audience question, well, the solution is just not getting in the water, right? Like that's not really a feasible solution. And you never feel like it makes you question that idea because that's really the only place the shark can get you. But it's that necessity to go after it that I think makes it work as well as it does.
hmm,
Oh, and one aspect that's really good, again, that it gets brought up a lot, but it's not something I obviously noticed when I was kind of first watching it. It's something you kind of get more as you get older. But this whole like, and Alien is the exact same. Actually, it's funny because obviously I mentioned Alien earlier. This whole sort of business aspect of it all, the way that the sort of the head honchos in the town are will do anything to like not stop people coming to sort of spend money in the town. This is like where they make all their money in the summertime. So they're like they will do everything to ignore the fact that there's a shark and try and explain it with other
yeah.
things just so that they don't lose out on their money, even though it causes people to get killed and injured and whatever. It only really hits home when the mayor's son nearly gets killed by the shark. Then it's like, oh, okay, all right, we need to actually deal with this. Up until then, he was very sort of like, no, it's fine, it's fine. We need to make our money. We need to make our money. Money is the only thing that matters. Um, Screw the safety aspect, screw everybody else. It was only when the shark nearly killed his son that he kind of woke up to the danger, which says a lot about even today, says a lot about governments and politicians and everything like that. So I think that aspect of the film is really interesting and maybe sort of underrated. Everybody talks about the shark and the scene where the shark starts eating the boat and everything like that. But I think the whole setup and how they were able to get to that point where the shark was a very real danger to the people of the village, of the town, or whatever you want to call it, the island. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to see. Yeah, I was trying to decide if nowadays if it was like Miami or some place with a with a coast that was like this, um, if they would even shut the city down. I don't think they would, honestly. I think I don't think we've changed at all. If anything, we have better technology now, maybe to like put some kind of an artificial reef around the beach and just tell people like don't swim out past this because there's a man-eating shark in the water. But I don't think they would shut it down now. I don't think anything's changed at all.
Well, I know this is years and years ago on the Carolina coast. We had an incident where somebody was bitten by a shark. And of course, there's tons of calls going into dispatch about it for tons and tons and tons. So they're, of course, sending people out. Down the beach, like maybe 20 minutes, someone else was bitten by a shark. And so at that point, they hadn't even shut the beach down. And so they start getting calls again. And thankfully, dispatch, they were assuming it was the same shark attack, but just in case, they went ahead and sent dispatch out. But two people were bitten by a shark, and like within an hour and a half of an issue of that going on. And I don't know if they ended up shutting it down then. I assume they did because I don't think you can get by two. I think one, you're like, yeah, that happens. But two, it's like, oh, that might be too many.
Yeah. Um, did y'all have y'all seen? I have not seen this. Have y'all seen Joe Dante's film Piranha?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a long time, but yeah.
No, I've not.
And then the sequel was James Cameron's baby, Piranha 2,
Yes.
The
The one he
Spring.
worked on for a week. Yeah. Yeah.
This whole spin-off nature of horror is fun to watch. I think I love spin-offs. And the story apparently for Piranha was that Spielberg, they wanted to file an injunction against Corman for producing Piranha because they were like, yo, come on. Like this is just a rip-off of Jaws. But then Spielberg saw the movie and he liked it, so he convinced them not to do it.
And I mean, I kind of agree with Corman here. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's how many movies are the same movie? I mean, come on, like it's different enough, right? Like, there's a point where especially with how many shark movies. I think Tommy Wiseau of Room fame just made a shark movie too, so we wouldn't have that masterpiece if it wasn't for that.
Have you seen it?
No, not yet. It's on my list, but I'm sure it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But the sort of movie that would have been inspired by Jaws as well that I remember kind of growing up would have been Lake Placid. Do you guys remember that one? The
Yes.
giant
Yes,
crocodile movie.
yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
used to watch that a bunch growing up. I don't know why. I think I had a VHS of it or something. I don't even remember much about the film other than it being about a giant alligator or crocodile or whatever.
I just want to note, like, I rewatched Lake Placid. So if you have good memories, I'd say keep it. I rewatched it a couple of years ago for the first time since I was a kid, and maybe it's just like the blood sucking nature of me. But I was like, man, only two people die in this movie, and I was very disappointed. I was
Really
like,
feel
I'll
like
just stick with Crawl.
Saying that though, Jaws doesn't have a massive body count either. It was like four people.
I feel like that's better though, and it's like it feels better. You doubled it.
Yeah, four. I'm trying to make sure I'm right here. Four and a dog, I think. Four people and a dog, if I'm right in saying that. You have the girl at the start, you have
Yeah,
the little boy, you have the
yeah,
guy they find where his eye pops out, and then
yeah.
Quint.
Yes, I believe that's everybody.
Okay.
That sounds right.
There's
Shark is a
but
bit
lots
of a
of
bitch.
terror.
Lots of
Is it a
terror.
is it a minor fifth? What's the jump? Do you know, Adam?
But I don't know. I know nothing about music theory.
Oh, okay. I figured there's a chance you would. I saw a YouTube video a while back, someone breaking it down, but I forgot. Um, what's it called? I have so in Austin, there's a screenwriting festival that's just, I mean, it's just exactly what it sounds like. It's all focused on screenplays, and a lot of people get, their scripts purchased for TV shows and things like that. I was volunteering 1 year for it. This is 15 years ago now, but I remember there's three people that got into this conversation, and the topic was, is Jaws the best screenplay of all time? And one of them was said yeah, and sort of convinced the other two. And
So we're gonna have this conversation in a minute, but with the next movie. But
okay. Interesting. I kind of like the fact that this would be up there. I mean, I guess I don't know I mean, how could you even say that? What's the best screenplay of all time? But it is pretty tight, right? There's not a lot of fluff. Um, they could probably cut, like you said, some scenes where they're on the boat just to get it a little tighter. But for a third script, Duel, Sugarland Express, and then Jaws, Zach, is the answer to your trivia question you posed. And then Close Encounter, and then Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. I mean, this guy had a pretty wild beginning to his career. But for a third script, it is pretty tight. And I don't know how you could get into best screenplay of all time, but uh, the screenplay is pretty solid.
Yeah, it's a good script. I'm like I said, I definitely could do with some tightening, but like even like the dialogue is all really great. Um, that's maybe something that you don't see a lot in like even with good horror films. Sometimes the dialogue's a bit corny and stuff. But I think the dialogue is all brilliant. Like Quint's monologue in the town hall and stuff,
Hmm.
and his story, like when he was in the army and stuff. Like it's all amazing.
Yeah.
The the screenwriting is really really good. I never would have it never would have jumped up to my head either as like a top one of the top screenplays or anything. But now that you say it, I can certainly see why there's an argument for it because it does a really good job of balancing a great story and really good dialogue as well.
And I think that's sometimes an issue. I think all of us can be guilty of. I sure am. Like when you get to these classic movies, you really enjoy them. You think they're great, but it's hard to like really consider the finer aspects like that sometimes. Like Jaws has always just been Jaws, so you don't think about its screenplay. You just know it's really quotable. Um, so I don't know. I think I've always had that issue when it comes to classic movies. Anyway, it's hard to really break them down. At least it has always been for me.
Yeah, I never feel I'm qualified to be honest. It's like, okay, there's people that have written PhDs on this. I'll just please defer to them. I just think it's a cool flick.
All right, so we have finished by sea, so let's go by land. We're going to talk about the 1990 film Tremors by Ron Underwood, who, if you know another movie he's ever directed, let me know, because I have never seen his name anywhere else. But Hit Candyman, Val McKee. This is a long one for Letterboxd. Jesus, you're making it way too complicated. Hit Candyman, Val McKee, and Earl Bassett can barely eke out a living in the Nevada hamlet of perfection, so they decide to leave town despite an admonishment from a shapely seismologist co-ed who is picking up an odd readings on her equipment. Before long, Val and Earl discover what's responsible for these readings: a 30-foot long carnivorous worms that are proclivity for sucking their prey underground. That is really long for what this is,
What
and
the
it's not even
fuck?
and it's not even
That's so
accurate.
weird.
They're not admonished by Rhonda. Like at no point does that happen to discourage them from leaving. They're actively leaving town. Okay, whatever. Somebody needs to update that because that's a terrible reading of what this movie is. Basically, giant worms underground try to destroy a town of population of like 14. That's the plot. So let's see how inaccurate both lists are, because if they're not in the top three of either, they're incorrect. So go ahead.
Not looking forward to saying this out loud. Okay, so they shoot zombies is 185.
Too low.
which, yeah, I mean, let's see. Right around it, you have Trick or Treat, Chronos, Let's Scare Jessica to Death. What's the Bergman filled Vark Teeman? Is that Virgin Spring, maybe? Um,
Mhm.
anyways, Child's Play is up there. Surprisingly, M is 179th best horror movie of all time. So Tremors is right next to M for as long as
That's a
M. If that makes...
Why the fuck is M? Well, I don't know if M is even a horror movie. It's more of a crime procedural, but
I
even
think,
if it is a horror movie, it shouldn't be that low. That film is so iconic.
yeah, and that's what I'm thinking is that it's not on a lot of horror lists because it's not like a pure
Yeah,
horror
it's
film, right?
more of a police procedural more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh, okay, Zach. So apologies ahead of time for being the one that says this out loud. Um, let's see. Uh, September from Woody Allen, the Cat in the Bag, a Canadian film that came out through Canadian International Pictures.
Canadian
Christopher,
Bacon, is that Michael Moore movie?
no, A Cat in the Bag is the
Ah,
Canadian
they
one that
said.
came.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. A Quiet Life from Juzo Tommy. These are all movies that are in the 8,000s, 500s.
Uh-huh.
And right next to them is Tremors, which is currently 8,558.
Well, that list is completely invalidated. I'm glad we've confirmed that.
Yeah,
September
the
is a pretty rough movie as well. So I'm surprised they're close. That's the only one I've seen that Chris called out. I saw September. It's all
that
right.
was my thought too. It's not all Woody Allen quirks aside, it's not one of his best.
No, it's not terrible. It's when he went through his Bergman phase.
Exactly, yeah. I didn't like it at all. Little Shop of Horrors from Corman is down there. There are some good movies that are in that area. Images, Adam.
No way.
Come on, Adam. You at least have to tell me Tremors is much better than Images.
Oh, of course. There's like that's like saying a box of chocolates is better than a slap in the face. You know, that's there's no comparing.
So yeah, unfortunately, critics were not kind and continue to not be kind on Tremors, which does seem unfair because it's a fun movie. But
It's kind of
yeah,
the ultimate definition of what a cult classic is, right? Like it has a pretty dedicated following. I mean, it's made, I don't know, like 7 sequels and a TV show at this point, but yeah, it's always been unfairly maligned, in my opinion.
so the funny thing is, the first movie that I saw from Ron Underwood was City Slickers.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at movies he's made now. Oh, Mighty Joe Young. Yeah, he had an interesting career.
Mighty
So he,
Joe Young, what a throwback. I better mark that as watched. Hold on. I love when I find stuff on Letterboxd. I never mark stuff like in my diary, like for stuff that I remembered seeing as a kid. I mark it that I did watch it though, just so that it shows up in like my all-time stats. So I like looking at these random directors to find stuff I've seen when I was a kid. Mighty Joe
He did
Young,
The
what a
Adventures
throwback.
of Pluto Nash. I didn't know
Never saw
anyone
that one.
directed that. I didn't know anyone directed that movie. I just assumed it came into being.
it probably had 8 directors over time. Who knows? A piece of trash. But yeah, he was the writer for Tremors as well, right?
Yeah, him and S.S. Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really, and this is like something they had actually when they came up with the film. It was under the title Land Sharks, which is a terrible name for what the movie is. And they kept, and this was a script they they wrote and rewrote, and they had a lot of years to kind of work on the script in between trying to sell it. And I think it's paid off. I think there's like a lot of brilliant moments, particularly in the script. I think when we talk about like Edgar Wright and how good he is at like setups and payoffs within his film, this film does it just as well. Like I can't think of anything that isn't set up and paid off, even like small moments of something being brought up and then being important by the end. And I don't know. I think it shows how much work they actually like put into the final product.
Yeah. I mean, I fully agree. I don't know, Adam, if you want to go next. I want to, I
Um,
wanted to tell y'all that this is my first time seeing it. I realized that when I got halfway through.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
I'd only ever seen pieces.
Well, then tell us what your experience was.
So I think this is the one that for 8,558 does seem unfair. I think this is one that gets probably like overlooked or forgotten about when you talk about great movies because just the setup is so simple. I actually think there's a lot. You said there's a lot of really great setup and then the resolution.
Mhm.
But I think even beyond that, there's just some really good ideas in this movie. Like the idea to have them all above ground on roofs and rocks and how they get around and the way it's set up, it's very it's like that piece of it keeps it very engaging and moves along. The story just like flies by, right?
And it
Uh
goes more into, our main characters being like blue collar guys, and they're knowing they're having to make decisions as quickly and efficiently as they can based on what they know. Because I mean, they're seeing, unlike Jaws, where people know what sharks are and things. This kind of takes that extra step, and they don't even really know what this is, or if
yeah.
it's even really possible to kill them that well. So it's that nice evolution to like get to the end of how they figure this out.
How much of the beats were stolen from Jaws here versus original? Because I feel like there was some overlap, but like I feel like there's also some tropes that came from this. Like, the scientist that there's that there's a joke that it runs through a lot of movies where a scientist will use the scientific name for something, and then everybody looks at her like she's crazy, and she'll go, dirt.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You're dealing with a lot of people who aren't educated. So yeah, I think that joke's great anyway.
yeah, like did that trope start here? Or
Richard Dreyfuss does it a little bit in Jaws, but like he doesn't he'll say like the scientific name for the shark, but then he'll say the actual name with it, without having to wait for that sort of punchline aspect of it. Because
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
Jaws is a
yeah.
bit more serious than Tremors, which is fine. But yeah, I totally get what you mean. Yeah, maybe that kind of making it a joke as opposed to a sort of character aspect maybe could be,
Well, it's
I
right
guess. Yeah.
around that time they have that joke too, where she's explaining like we've never seen anything like this. It's completely unprecedented. And then the other guy's like, yeah, but where did they come from? Like they just don't understand the word unprecedented, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really good, Zach. I get I'd be curious to see the sequels and how quick the series drops off.
A
But
lot of people say the second one is better. I disagree. The second one is good. It's good. They went direct to video after this one because it bombed at the box office due to a really terrible trailer. But it got its love on VHS on home video afterwards. But yeah, and then three is watchable. Four is okay. It's a Western, takes place in the past one. It's pretty decent. And then it just keeps getting lower and lower till the end.
okay, that's how things go.
But
Adam, you want to walk through your history with this
Yeah.
franchise?
Yeah, so I was talking to this earlier with Zach before we started sort of properly recording, because I've seen Tremors before. That was the three films we're talking about today. The first two that we're talking about now are the ones I'd seen before, but I had not seen Tremors in a long time. I was a kid. Last time I saw Tremors, I remembered aspects of it, but didn't really remember like 99% of the film. Funnily enough, the part of the film that was most sort of memorable for me, well, I say memorable, just when I think of Jaws, I always think of the character played by Michael Gross.
mhm.
Uh, he's the guy, and I'm pretty sure he stays with the film series for at least a few more films, right?
He
He kind
stays
of
until the
becomes.
seventh one, yeah, and he's in the
Oh,
TV
okay.
show as well. Yeah, he's
He
all the way through it.
basically becomes the main character of the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was always the most memorable. Maybe because I saw all the sequels as well as a kid. So my dad was a big fan of the Tremors series. So that's why I've seen them, because just growing up, he would like watch all of them, so he'd show us them. So I just kind of grew up on them a little bit. But again, it would have been when I was like I probably haven't seen any of these films until I was like 7 or 8 or something like that. So I was like really young. Um, So I was interested going into this. I have the Arrow special edition that Arrow put out a while ago. I don't have the 4K because it was before I had a 4K player. So I watched it on Arrow's Blu-ray, the sort of special edition that they brought out a few years
Mhm.
ago. So I watched it on that. Transfer was really good. One thing that struck me initially was like how really like this film looks great. It's like it's not cheap. It doesn't look cheap or anything like that. I know it probably was cheap. But it doesn't look cheap or anything like that. It looks really good. You can tell it's all kind of mainly shot on location and stuff like that, which is cool. Um, so I really like that. I forgot Kevin Bacon was in it. I didn't realize that Kevin Bacon was going to be there doing a sort of southern hick accent, which is kind of funny to see. And I definitely didn't know that Fred Ward was in it. Obviously, we talked about Fred Ward in Miami Blues when we did that episode a few
Yeah.
months ago. Fred Ward was great. I think the cast in general are really, really good. I think everyone's so solid. All the characters are really well put together. There's a lot of like tropiness to their characters, but like in a loving way. It doesn't feel like they're trying to like. I never felt like the filmmakers were trying to like look down on blue collar people or anything like that.
No, yeah, definitely not.
It
Yeah.
all feels very sort of rich and organic, and everyone is sort of well fleshed out. So I think the characters are really well written. The script is good. It's funny, which is cool because like sometimes with with something like Jaws is pretty serious. There's like maybe a couple of moments you might give it a little bit of a humorous chuckle, but maybe sort of more on a commentary side of things where you can't believe the mayor is this much of an asshole. But there's not really any jokes, whereas Tremors kind of is a bit funnier, which I think is
Well,
good because you need to have that for something like this. If you try and take it really seriously, it can come across as corny. Whereas this is just kind of like it's nice to have a bit of a joke while also having a very real threat. The graboids are pretty scary as well.
yeah, and I mean, I've always like, I think horror comedy is such a hard thing to pull off, and I think it's easy to make very unsuccessful because it's easy to take away the tension from the horror, and I think that's something it does extremely well. Is that when it needs to be a horror film, it's a horror film, and in between, it can do, it's hard to call them jokes, but they can at least be lighthearted about it enough to,
Yeah,
laugh because of the way the characters are. They act real within who they are, and it kind of makes it its own funny in its own way.
yeah, definitely feel that way with this one. So like I said, look overall, like it's not my. I'm sorry, Zach, it's not my favorite film ever or anything like that, but
It's fine to be
uh,
wrong. It's fine.
it's fun. It's a fun time. It's one of those films that I'll maybe throw on every few years. And it definitely holds some nostalgia for me just because obviously, seeing it a lot growing up, even though I didn't remember a ton of it because it's been that long. It's been like 20 years since I've seen any of the Tremors movies, but um I had fun, which is all that matters, really. I think the filmmakers of Tremors will be happy so long as you've had fun watching this film. It seems like a
Yeah.
film made to have some fun. So as long as you're going to walk away having a good time, I'm sure the filmmakers would have been happy with that.
I did want to like highlight. I don't know if you guys will remember because when I was a kid, I kept this movie on VHS and like it was always on TV for a lot. So I've seen it way too many times. So a lot of the little stuff it's easier for me to remember, and I don't blame anyone for not. So this film did about like every trick of effects that was really available at the time because this is of course before Jurassic Park, so there's no real CGI. I don't think there's any, to be honest, because I don't really think there was any type of thing you could do back then affordably. So one of my favorite bits of it is there's a scene where it's the basement scene where Bert is down there and the graboid comes in and they're just shooting at it with like a wall full of guns. You see a part where he like drops what looks like an automatic weapon. You see like all the casings and stuff around it, and then it shows the graboid over there. The coolest thing about that is it is a seamless cut between the drop, that being turning into a miniature gun and miniature shells to show the miniature of the graboid. And that is just like so cool to me how seamless that is to go from full size all the way to the puppet.
Ah,
Because
That
at
is
that
good.
point, it's just a hand puppet. That's all it is in the basement is a hand puppet.
Hmm. That is good because a lot of times you will notice you will notice miniatures, like not to bring up Godzilla again, but like You know, when you watch like Godzilla stomping on buildings and stuff, it's so obviously
Yeah.
a dude in a costume stomping on miniatures. It's
Yeah.
Right.
like it's at the point where they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
No, no, no.
Everyone knows what's going on here. Let's not try and be glib. But I no, I never caught that with Tremors. I would have assumed it was all giant animatronics. So
Yeah, and
that's cool.
I think they only had one or two that were like mostly full size for the film itself. So those were not the ones they would destroy necessarily because they had to get like close up shots to the one where when the two come into the town, that's when they're getting the close up shots, and they're doing a lot of reverse shots because the tongue things, whatever you want to call them, are hands, the hand puppets that they're doing in reverse and things like
Oh,
that.
cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of neat tricks in here, and I think it like as far as like practical effects goes, it's really good, and I think it's real. And I guess that's a good sign of practical effects is there's so much of it not. I think the only time it's super noticeable is that composite shot in the basement where you see Bert like in front of the screen, like shooting at the
Yeah,
graboid. I think that's the only one that did not age particularly well, but
those
with
are
how
always tough to
effect
pull
heavy is,
off.
yeah, I mean it's how effect heavy it is. That's only so much you can do
Hmm.
with a when I did look it up, it's a $10 million budget. So it's actually with inflation, it was made for less than Jaws was. Since you said
I
Jaws
was
was at 9, right?
Yeah,
uh,
that's true. Do you, Zach, make your defense of this movie? Why is this the best movie, what top three movie of all time? This yours is the only opinion that matters here.
um, I mean, it's hard to separate yourself from nostalgia. I watched this as forever growing up, so I can at least be honest about that. I have seen this movie more than every other movie ever. Like Halloween's my number one. I've seen this a lot more. Um, it does everything just so well. Like I talk about the script, but it's one of those things where every time you go into it and rewatch it, there is so much set up, and I mentioned that earlier of how well the script is, how likable the characters are, and I have a love for blue collar heroes. Like that's a big thing in horror, and really any movie that I just really love is how well they do that. And Adam mentioned a few minutes ago, they do it without really making fun of them. They're jokes and they're things that someone who lives a blue collar lifestyle would appreciate because there's a authenticity to that. And so it's just little things like that. I think that's what pays it off. I think there's this. It's just a smart script all the way through from beginning to end. Like I don't really, there's nothing really for me to pick apart as far as the script goes. Sure, it's borrowing from monster movies, and it's given that like 50s monster movie feel, but it's doing it in such like a modern way, at least modern when it came out 30 some years ago. So yeah, I think that's really what's kind of kept me with it for all these years.
Is it better than Images?
I would say it's a little better, maybe not by much.
oh god.
Why do you think it's not more loved? Because there are campy movies that are rated much higher than this, right? I mean, I think this could fall under the campy category, right?
I think so. Yeah. Even though it takes its threat seriously, but it still doesn't avoid just being fun and ridiculous. It also knows it's ridiculous. Like this entire premise is ridiculous.
Yeah, but they lean into it, which is so fun, right?
Yeah, like and I think that's the nice thing about having like the blue collar characters is they're also you're talking about people who are extremely just pragmatic. That's a lot of what you'll do from handymen and stuff. They're just pragmatic minded. So when you have something like that, it's it's interesting to hear them talk about it because it's almost like that part in From Dusk Till Dawn where you have George Clooney's character saying, I don't want to hear anybody say that it wasn't vampires. I don't believe in vampires. But what I did see was a vampire. And I think that it captures a lot of that energy to where it's like, look, we can talk about how ridiculous it is all day, but this is the reality of what's going on.
I like that.
But as far as why I don't think it got more popular, I mean, it did in the sense of like the videotape era, but I mean, it bombed in the theaters. If you guys ever get really curious, see like a bad version of a trailer, definitely check out the Tremors one. It's really bad. Um, and that really discouraged people from seeing it because I mean it just looked like a Jaws ripoff, and there's definitely things pulling from Jaws. I don't think the filmmakers would deny that either, but it's still like its own sort of thing. It's its own tone. It's its own monster. It's very creative. But from there, I mean, it's kind of tough. It's a tough sell from there. It bombed, and it just kind of grew up with certain people, and I think it stuck with them very strongly. And then for others, maybe not as much, but that would just be speculating.
I think
Yeah,
to be fair with Tremors though, I think like I'm just going by Letterboxd here, and it has a pretty good like distribution of ratings, on Letterboxd. I was just doing some quick maths there, just while you guys were talking about this. So I was adding up in terms of like all the ratings. So between half a star and 3 stars, 41,000 people have rated it between half and 3 stars. But then you look at 3.5 and 4 stars, which for most people is like a solid film. There's 28,000 people rated at 3.5 stars, and 30,000, nearly 31,000 people rated at 4. There's a bit of a drop off then to 7,000 for 4.5 and 9,500 for 5 stars. So going by Letterboxd, it seems the vast majority of people consider this a solid film at the very least. You're looking at a much smaller amount of people think it's bad. So maybe it's just more of a critical thing, and maybe it's as Zach was saying, it's kind of become a cult classic. So maybe more people are watching it, especially after that Arrow release and stuff like that. It's getting a lot more eyes on it, maybe. But it seems to be something that general audiences or people who at least watch it seem to think at the very least it's a solid film.
interesting. I wonder, do you think there's an element of Letterboxd where people are seeing it for the first time, like a new generation is seeing it?
Yeah, I think that's more likely. I think Letterbox generally skews younger with its
Yeah.
with its user base. Does generally screen, like when you consider the fact this film came out 4 years before I was born. I'm nearly 30, so I'd say a lot of people who are viewing this now are watching it for the first time, maybe after the Arrow release, or maybe seeing it on streaming or something like that. I doubt a lot of the people rating this film kind of watched it when it originally came out in 1990. So I'd say comparing how it was received critically in 1990 versus how people are kind of looking back at it now, I'm not surprised that there's a big sort of jump, between critical rating at the like contemporary critical rating versus retrospective audience ratings, because a lot of the time people go back and watch stuff and it gets reappraised and people have fun with it and are kind of surprised it didn't do as well as it did at the time. I think there's loads of examples of that.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I just have a feeling like it's just so fun to watch. I have imagined it's gonna continue to get rediscovered. It's just so easy to watch. I don't know. I don't know that I would call it a top 5 film for me, Zach, but it is very fun to watch. I could watch it again right now. There was another thing I wanted to ask y'all about. And I don't know if there's anything else to say on that, but there's this whole thing in horror about the whole like direct to video franchises. And I was trying to think of the big ones. I mean, Hellraiser is a big one. This is a big one. Would this be considered one of the biggest direct-to-video horror franchises?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always hard to gauge, right? Because I mean, at least with theater ones, you have like the box office and things like that to kind of gauge what's going on and what its popularity and things like that. But Tremors has always kind of been interesting in the sense that especially the first four, I think there was a lot of popularity with that, and I mean, they at least thought the third one would be like a good pilot for the TV show they eventually did on Sci-Fi. So I would say so, and it's had a bit of success. Whether it's the biggest would be harder, but I think there is like an argument that I think unlike Hellraiser, there was at least for a while attempt at quality. Like a lot of people talk about how good the second one is, and they seem to get pretty decent budgets. They did move more to CGI as with the third one, and then went back to practical in the fourth, and So there at least seemed to have been like an attempt to keep it consistent.
What are the big ones though? Like, are there? Is it Hellraiser? I know they had what, two, three theater, right? Movies in theater, and then the rest were direct to video.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think that's right for Hellraiser. And then I don't think I think well, even the new one didn't get in theaters because it was a Hulu exclusive.
Yeah. So what are the other big horror, like direct to video horror franchises though? Because I was trying to think of some of them.
Let
Um,
me think.
like were
Because you
there
got,
any that were primarily direct to video?
I mean, Tremors had everything but one go into direct to video, and then Leprechaun, I guess it had what one? I think you mentioned that, Adam, and I think the rest
I'm
were direct to
surprised Leprechaun
video.
only had one. I assumed everything from Leprechaun after the first would have been direct to video. That's surprising.
I'm only guessing. I couldn't confirm that, but I mean, it's
Okay.
so rare to see like necessarily a pure direct to video franchise like that because I mean, it usually I guess the theater and its eventual like release on home video is what gives like them enough confidence to just keep pushing them out. Um, so I mean, I'm not sure if Leprechaun did. I'd be interested to see, but I would guess the first one did. And then I think that one, maybe Origins went in theaters, which was terrible, but I think WWE did that one. So I think it actually went to the movie theater.
Yeah, I can't think
Um,
of any off the top of my head either.
yeah. It's just an interesting subsection, right? Because I this really brought back the blockbuster days for me. Um, they had people would come in asking for all these slasher movies and stuff, and most of them I would say were theatrical, but um, yeah, there was this whole sub industry um around the movie store essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Silent Night, Deadly Night's one that comes to mind. All the sequels there, but
Maybe
how many?
Sleepaway Camp? How many of those did they make?
Sleepaway Camp was a good. Amityville. I mean,
Oh,
I don't know
Medieval,
when they
yeah.
started going direct to video, but what is there, 27 now?
Something stupid like that, I guess.
Anyways, it's a fun part. This is one of my favorite things about Vinegar Syndrome is how they're getting into this so much of the direct to video stuff now. And it's some movies that I had never seen, but I had kind of seen the box up on the shelf at Blockbuster for years, but I had never actually seen. It's a fun part of movie history for me.
So I suppose in the opposite of direct to video, will we talk about the last film?
Yeah, the other end of the spectrum,
The other
budget
end of the
and
spectrum. Yeah.
critically and everything, huh?
Yeah, sure. Let me get that up really quickly. And so for the last one is going to be our most recent. Came from somebody who has gained quite a bit of notoriety and horror for the last few years, to say the least. We have Jordan Peele's Nope, which released summer of last year. Residents in a lonely gulch in inland California bear witness to an uncanny, chilling discovery. Wow, Letterboxd got a pretty good one.
I
It's
was
very
gonna
vague.
say,
Yeah, it's very vague, but that's a whole lot better than the last one.
yeah.
Since this is new, I don't know how well it'll be on these lists, Chris. It may not have had an opportunity to really make them, but I figured I'd check just in case.
So it's not on They Shoot Zombies yet, but it did
Okay.
debut on They Shoot Pictures.
Okay, where did it debut at?
So up by Crazy Rich Asians.
Okay, interesting.
Nolan's Batman Begins.
That's a good one. Okay.
Manos, The Hands of Fate.
That's an interesting
Wow.
choice.
Wow.
uh, 5,000 922. It debuted in that range. Or
That's
it
actually high, yeah, for something barely a year old.
yeah, it is a people like this movie. Um we've done Adam and I first. What about you? What do you think about Nope, Zach?
I was a huge fan of it. Now last year, I think it's really good. It didn't end up being my favorite horror movie of last year, but last year was a whole lot stronger than this year. But I think it does everything extremely well. It's easily my favorite Peel film, between this, Get Out, and Us. it follows the same thing. I said when it released that it was Jordan Peele's Tremors, and I stand by that. I think it has a lot of similarity with that. We did the ocean, we did the land, and now we're doing the sky. And I mean, it's hard to talk about this film because you feel bad, kind of. I don't know if it's a spoiler of we know it's aliens, right? I guess we can at least be that vague about it. But yeah, extraterrestrial kind of thing. But no, I absolutely love it. It's the same sort of thing. It's the same thing as the other two. You got some more blue collar type workers who are attempting to figure out what's going on. And theirs is a little bit different because unlike the other two, where you're kind of taking the mayor's role where they're trying to make money, like this is their opportunity to make something and, give people what they'd be wanting to see, because they talk about like, oh, well, the only time you ever see anything is in fuzzy pictures. So why don't we get something real? And we can be on Oprah or whatever. And I think that's a very interesting way to kind of take that back a little bit, because it does have a survival element as it goes, but that's definitely not how it starts.
Right.
Yeah, it all starts off relatively innocent, just trying to get some images before shit hits the fan.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like, you have the other ones who, they're attempting to be this hero, and they're not really that interested in being heroes. They're interested in making a living, because none of them are making a living doing what they're doing. They're barely getting by. They're going to lose everything. So for them, it's not about saving this area of California. It's about their own survival, both physically with what's going on with the extraterrestrial, and their own survival in the sense of making some money so they can, even after all this is over, things don't just go back to normal, because they don't really want normal.
Right.
I went into this film pretty blind. I knew it was about aliens because I'd heard the whole thing that Nope stood for not of planet Earth. So I knew it was about aliens, but I didn't really know anything else about the film at all. Didn't know the setup, didn't know anything else that was sort of potentially going to play out. I knew aliens were in it, and that was pretty much it. So the way the film played out was a bit of a surprise, kind of a pleasant surprise for me. I enjoyed it. I only watched it literally last night, so it's really fresh in my brain still. But I really enjoyed it. I convinced Neve to watch it with me because Kiki Palmer's in it, and she really likes Kiki Palmer. So I was like, "Oh, Kiki Palmer's in this." Zach told me that she should have won an Oscar for her role in this film. You should come watch it. And she was like, "Yeah, no problem." But she hates alien stuff, so she was like, "Is this like a scary horror or a psychological horror?" And I was like, well, it's Jordan Peele. I don't really know much about it, but like it's Jordan Peele, so it's probably more psychological than scary horror. And she was like, "Oh, okay, cool, that sounds good." And we are like halfway through the film, and I hadn't mentioned anything about aliens, and then the alien stuff starts happening, and she's like, "Is this about aliens?" And I was like, "Yeah, it looks that way. I think it's about aliens." And she literally got up and left. she was like, "I'm not watching stupid alien movies." I was like, "God damn it!" I was so close. She doesn't trust me ever since I convinced her to watch La Dolce Vita, because I told her it was about paparazzi. She just doesn't trust me anymore.
Well, to be fair, you are being sneaky.
I admitted the fact that it was 3 hours long. That was a stickling point. But anyway, I really enjoyed Nope. I haven't seen Us. I saw Get Out. I really love Get Out. I think it's a great film. I haven't seen it in a few years. I haven't gotten around to seeing Us, so this is only my second Peele film. But I really enjoyed it. I didn't love it. It's not like a film I'd like ready to sit down and watch again tomorrow or anything like that. But I thought it was really well done. Really weird in a good way as well. Like that whole sort of subplot about the monkey on the chimpanzee on the sitcom. Like what the fuck? Like when the film opens with like that monkey, with like it obviously the opening sort of shot of the film is the monkey like covered in blood on the set, and I was like, what the hell? I thought this was about aliens. Where is this going? But honestly, that's the scariest part of the movie for me, actually, by the way, when they finally kind of show the part where the chimp goes crazy. Chimps are scary. They will fuck you up. And
it really ties scary. In so well. Like, I talked about, that with Tremors, where they're just using kind of what they know to their advantage. like the whole thing revolves around the idea of how we treat animals and like how we don't like respect animals, at least in the movie business. You have Gordy who, it gets him going, you don't look them in the eyes, that sort of thing. And then the same thing with the horses later. And then the final thing at the end when you get to the alien is you don't look at it. It's
Yeah,
like this whole idea of
100%.
spectacle. You don't look at, the need for spectacle is what, is the harm.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to piece together for a good chunk of the film. I was like, where is this chimpanzee story? Like, why did they not cut this? Where does this actually play into the entire film? And like, what's the point of Stephen Ewan's character at all? Really, I didn't really get it. And then obviously, we got to that sort of part in the film where it kind of shows what happened with Gordy, and then they have Stephen Ewan's character kind of show that he's basically making money off this alien, it seems, or he's trying to make some money off it. So yeah, there's definitely that commentary there about how we treat animals for sort of monetary gain, instead of actually treating them like wild animals. So I thought that was a really interesting commentary to make, because I wasn't expecting it at all, and I was trying to really piece together where the Gordy thing came into this film about aliens. But it's a really interesting commentary that you don't really see a lot in films. We don't really sort of see a lot of films unless it's like explicitly about like animal cruelty, like that documentary Blackfish, obviously it's there, but like you don't really see a lot of narrative films that are not explicitly about sort of mistreating animals. So it's an interesting thing to have in a horror movie about aliens.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I really liked is it does leave like a sense of mystery, and I wanted to kind of get what you guys were kind of thinking of. It was the like the shoe standing up. That's kind of been a
Yeah.
big talking point of what that really is trying to say or what it's doing, like towards the rest of the film, of why it like fascinates Stephen Yeun's character like so much throughout.
And am I correct? Didn't answer that though, right?
No, it doesn't. It's
I was
very
thinking.
much left vague. Yeah, I mean,
I was
it's
also enthralled by that. I was like, why is the shoe just standing so perfectly in place? Is this going to tie into the aliens later? And I was like, no. So yeah, I was also very much enthralled by the shoe.
Chris, you've been quiet.
Yeah. No, I have a thought on the shoe, but um, so I think just quickly, nope, for me, it's tough. Like, there's the best, my favorite scene from a Jordan Peele movie is the scene where you see the silhouettes of a family standing in the driveway of in Us. I
Mm-hmm.
think that scene, that just on an island, that scene is the best thing he's done. It is so chilling. And he holds the camera so well. I know we're not talking about Us, but just like that, the way that that plays out is so good. Um, and I think people should watch Us even just to get that experience of just that one scene. That is top tier horror. Um, Nope for me is an interesting one. It's almost like a slow cinema monster movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just fascinated by Peele in general because the stuff he's doing is heady and like intelligent, but at the same time, he's not like every one of his characters is so accessible. Like the way that he writes is so comfortable and easy to follow. But then when like you take a step back, the ideas in the movie are always very interesting and have depth, right? So he I don't know. I think he's gonna be remembered in the long run as one of our best like horror directors if he stays in the genre. I'm fascinated by this guy's career.
And it's interesting you mentioned that because I know he's talked about many times in his interviews that his biggest influence and his favorite director is Carpenter. And
Yeah,
they're talking about the idea that you can kind of take something at face value or you can dig deeper into it, and it's kind of a little bit more up to you how far you want to look into it.
yeah.
I think he does that very well. I think Carpenter was also very good at that. You get what you put into it. If you want it to just be a fun little thing, that's great. It's there for you. I think, Peels, it's a little bit more obvious there's something there and it's a little bit harder to avoid it. But I think, you can take Nope as just what it is. It's about people fighting aliens. And, you can leave it there if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the Carpenter comparison, Zach. I think that makes a lot of sense. I also feel like watching a Peele movie is kind of like watching a Hitchcock movie back in the 60s. Um, some of his horror stuff. I just think he balances like let's say like the populist style of making entertainment along with a little bit of more deeply like critically acclaimed, uh, themes and stuff very well. And I think Carpenter's a good example of that. But um, I I don't know. I'm very fascinated by this Peele's career. Um, the Shoe is an interesting one. There is an article. Have y'all ever read Jordan Peele's take on it?
No.
I have not.
So he said the shoe represents a moment. Sorry, the reason I'm struggling is that the English isn't really. I don't know if they capture this quote right. I have to like kind of interpret this a little bit. That doesn't make sense the way it's written. The shoe represents a moment where we check out of a trauma. And Jupe, he zones in on this little shoe. That's Mary Jo's shoe that has landed in a precarious, odd situation. And in that moment, he disassociates. So the shoe for me is in essence, uh, in one way, it's an impossible shot. It's an impossible moment.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like a part in the Blair Witch Project where they're talking about the camera and they're talking about like why they continue to record. And he goes in, it's almost like it's not real, when you look through the camera. It's they can disassociate the word you used away from the trauma they're feeling currently because they're just looking at it in the same sort of way, almost like a spectacle thing.
Mm,
If I look at it through this lens, it's not as bad.
yeah.
And like that old line, that they have on like movie posters. Just keep telling yourself it's only a movie.
It's only a movie.
Yeah. So if you're looking at it through the lens, as you said, or you're trying to find a way to disassociate from the moment, it's kind of like you're telling yourself this actually isn't real. It's all good. You're safe.
Mm-mm. Yeah. I like that. It's interesting to have stuff like that in I would say, big budget kind of blockbustery type horror film, right? This is another reason why I like Peele. Um, I still think Get Out is still my favorite because of the impact it had on me when I saw it. It was just, I don't know. I just remember seeing it in the theaters and just leaving and thinking about it for days, and talking about it a lot. Get Out. I didn't have that same reaction to Nope, but I did like it. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. I did like it. It's a fun movie. I think it's very well made. Um, and I might raise it if I watched it again. I don't know, but yeah, it's yeah. And anyways, I think it's very fun and very well made. Um,
Yeah, I'm
but
kind of in the same boat as you,
okay.
Chris. With Get Out, I didn't see it in theater, saw it at home, and like I was walking around my living room watching Get Out because like Nope, I went in blind, I didn't know what it was about, and I was like walking around watching it because like it was so stressful. Um, and it really messed up my brain. And I like Nope. I was maybe a little bit more kinder to it in my rating, giving it 4 stars rather than 3.5. But I suppose we've different different rating.
What was the one we just discovered recently? Was it Big Lebowski?
The Big Lebowski, the film that you called me basically an asshole for basically called me an asshole on the podcast about Big Lebowski, and then it turned out we both rated it 4 stars. So clearly we have different ranking methods, but
Oh
whenever.
man.
I did like Nope. I'm glad I went in blind. Unfortunately, I can't watch Us blind because the twist was spoiled on me, so I won't have as probably won't have as good of a time in terms of trying to figure stuff out with us when I eventually watch it. Probably why I'm not too fussed on watching it, because it's already been spoiled on me. Um, but I'll get around to it eventually. But yeah, I think Peele's a hell of a filmmaker. Um, if he keeps up this consistency, over the next sort of 10, 15, 20 years, we could be talking about, someone that we'll consider an all-timer, because, you know, he kind of has the full package in that he really gets the technical stuff right. He gets the characters right. The scripts are always are good, because there's a good balance between the actual meat and bones of the plot and also that sort of underrunning social commentary that he's known for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think he has a good balance of everything.
And I
If
think
we oh
he
yeah, go ahead.
rates. Oh, sorry. I was going to just note that even like with his comedy background, there's like a bit of that too, and there's like a couple good gags in this one, even though it takes itself fairly seriously of what's going on. But like, I love the. It's almost like, I guess you'd call it like a scare gag, where you think something's in the barn, and then you see the
Mm.
alien mask, and it's just like, and then it ends up not being anything like that. It ends up, just being its own thing. But I just think that part's pretty funny, even though it's kind of very tense until you see what it actually is.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It was at that part that Neve figured out that it was aliens, and she left the room.
She
Uh,
noped out.
she noped out. Yeah, not because she's scared of aliens, just because she thinks aliens are dumb. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, it wasn't that she was like scared of aliens. She's like, no, I can't watch this because aliens are scary. It was like, I think aliens are stupid. I'm not watching a movie about aliens. Uh,
Y'all are both
Well,
so
so
and
funny. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
no, I was just going to note it. There is even like this kind of argument of if it is an alien, right? Like, we're kind of
I guess we don't
assuming it
know.
is
Yeah,
because of its shape, but
yeah, that's true.
there's nothing to say it's not terrestrial. It's
Yeah,
just not something we knew about.
But I'm
As
fascinated. I'm fascinated by how loosely you hold on to a commitment to watch a movie. What was the thing the other day? Oh, Talk to Me being an Australian movie. As soon as you
oh yeah,
realized it was in Australia, you turned it off.
yeah. And it was the same when I went to watch the Babadook, and I saw the production company was Australian. I was like, nah, I'm not watching the Babadook. Screw that.
Oh my gosh, y'all are cracking me up.
I was very
Um,
close to turning off Mothra versus Godzilla last night when the fairies showed up. I was like, the only reason I didn't is because my dog was lying on me, so I would have had to move my dog and he was sleeping. That's the only reason I sat through Mothra versus Godzilla last night.
I
Because
think
I didn't want to wake my dog up.
that's probably the tagline on the poster. A movie that you can watch if your dog's asleep on you and you can't get up and it happens to be on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, I would love to meet somebody who like loves Mothra versus Godzilla just to hear their take on it.
Yeah.
Um, but
Any final thoughts on Nope before I tell us what we're gonna watch next time out?
no, just a quick one. I'm wondering if if Peele is climbing a horror director ladder. Has he reached Shyamalan territory yet?
Reached what territory? Sorry, maybe I misheard
Shyamalan,
you.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh,
I mean, we're kind of. I mean, Shyamalan. I mean, that's why it's always tough. You talk about a director 3 movies in. Maybe they have 3 really good ideas, and it's hard to know because I mean, we're in the same spot with Ari Aster, with Robert Eggers, and things like that. I mean, Shyamalan, his first like 3 or 4 films are great, and I like a lot of Shyamalan's later output too. He definitely has some misses, but it's kind of tough to gauge this early. Like what he could completely mess up the next one for all we know.
Yeah.
You'd hope not, because there's a lot of talent there. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of. He has a good eye for things. He's obviously a very intelligent person, so you hope for the best.
I guess we have to see 5 to be able to know. Huh? But yeah, no, I just can't wait to see more from. I was gonna say from this young man, but I think he's 50, so I'll just say from Peele.
Yeah, he was a young adult when he played in the video for Weird Al's White and Dirty.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great time. I don't have anything else to say though. That was just my last. I was just curious about the Mount Rushmore of horror directors, or the ladder, I guess, of horror directors. But what are we watching next, Adam?
Yeah, so next time out, this was a concept that I had sort of played with for a little while. I'm kind of curious to watch films that are maybe inspired by or have similar themes. And I know it's something that we kind of cover a lot, obviously a lot, with this week's creature features with a blue collar aspect. So I kind of mean more films that are maybe like directly inspired by other ones is a sort of idea that I've been playing with for a while. And I was trying to think of a few different like examples that I can use that are not like direct remakes, but clearly there's like an influence there, if that makes sense. So I picked three films, so it's going to be another three film week, because two of them are kind of obvious, but I think there's a third that deserves to be talked about in between as well. So the three films we're going to talk about are first off, Michelangelo Antonioni's film Blow Up. Then the Francis Ford Coppola film The Conversation, and Brian De Palma's Blow Out. So Blow Up and Blow Out, obviously the similarity is there as well, but The Conversation I think is also falls into the same kind of category of people stumbling upon conspiracies and struggling to figure out what to do with that information. So that's going to be our theme next time out. I've only seen the latter and the former. I haven't seen The Conversation, so I don't know if any of these are going to be first time watches for you guys. I know Zach's definitely seen Blow Out anyway, and I assume has seen The Conversation.
I have not seen The Conversation, so that'll be a new one for me as well.
Interesting. Chris, have you seen any of those films before?
I've only seen The Conversation.
Oh, well, okay.
So we've all seen one of them. Well, you've seen two, Adam, right?
I've seen two. I've seen Blow Up and Blow Out, so I've seen both of those, but I haven't seen The Conversation. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, we'll wrap things up there anyway for you listeners. Thank you for sticking with us through those. Probably next episode we'll talk about what our schedule is going to be like. Obviously, we're coming up to the holiday period now, so next episode we'll kind of give you a heads up once we've kind of figured it out ourselves what our schedule is going to be like. We're going to be taking a couple of weeks off in or around Christmas and New Year's, but we'll give you some heads up advance when we get our shit together and figure it out ourselves.
Awesome. Well, this is a fun one. Thanks, Zach, for the picks. I enjoyed these.
Yeah, for sure. I did as well.